All right, great. Hey, welcome everyone. My name is David. I'm a recovered alcoholic and addict. And this person that is with me today needs no introduction. Please, you all know her, and that she is my favorite AA, CA, or NA, or DA, or any A meeting. Is our famous and well versed Paige F. So please welcome Paige
Hey,
F. and
thank
introduce yourself.
you. Pew pew. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic addict. Super glad to be here.
I am so excited that she accepted my to bring her aboard today. We've done this a couple times before, and I always enjoy listening to her and bringing her experience and knowledge to the format here, as we would do. So let's not waste any time. Let's start. We'll start this meeting here with a version of the set aside prayer. God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and you, for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my unmanageability, and my spiritual path, and especially you. Again, thank you guys for all being here, and thanks for coming with us to take the 12 steps. So we already introduced ourselves. Emily is not here. I didn't get a response back to her, so we don't have our dictionary person, but Paige is gracious enough to run the chat. So let me give it a little bit more of a lead in. This is not a fellowship meeting. And over the 12 weeks, we're going to take the 12 steps with the precise, specific, and clear-cut directions that come out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because this is not a fellowship group, anyone interested in the 12 steps is welcome to take the steps with us. The goal is to learn how to take the steps and then take someone else through the same process so they get recovered and then they carry the message to someone else. This recording will be in our WhatsApp group, on a numerous bunch of podcasts and YouTube. Let's see, and I guess we'll maybe put that stuff in the chat if we get an opportunity to. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. So, anyways, so what we did so far, let me just set up here where we're at. So we are in step 9. We're going to start on page 78 in the second paragraph. As Paige loves to do, we're not going to bounce around the book. We're going to stay in order, but we are going to bounce back and forth. That's what we're going to do. So no matter what, we're bouncing. Somehow, some way, we're going to bounce. And well, what we did is last week Bill introduces to us a number of different uh, amends, and the first one that he presented to us was people we hated or resented, and we took most of the meeting to go over that in pretty good detail. And the thing about that is step 9 is where the willingness in step 8 becomes real. It becomes real here, guys. And this is probably the only process, we, as I take the steps with a sponsor or a step guide, we do the shoulder to shoulder, being led by to someone's arm with the facts about themselves. But sometimes I'm gonna have to make these amends by myself. I'm not gonna be able to take someone with me. This is why we're building a relationship with power. And I'm going to get into this as we talk about page 78 in the second paragraph and how important it is to be tapped into this power. Because as you may experience yourself when you walk in the rooms and you've seen the steps on the wall and you try to have a off the wall experience, that's exactly what you're going to have, is an off the wall experience. The thing is, I wanted to do amends first. Didn't want to do any of the other work. I just want to say I'm sorry to everybody. Well, sorry is not an amends. Amends is to change. And sorries, I've wore those babies out. So no one's interested in my sorries. So I guess so. The next process here, and Paige is going to come in and do the reading, and then she'll explain in great detail, and I will try to jump in at some point. We're going to address people and institutions that we owe money to, and that's on page 78, second paragraph. Let's get rocking and rolling.
Awesome. Rock and roll. Most alcoholics owe money. What? What? Alcoholics? Being irresponsible with their finances? I am shocked. I'm sure you guys are all too. Uh, and I always like to emphasize that, use a little bit of humor, because one of the things is, man, they didn't have a lot of money to write this book. And so when we're talking about specific types of harms that were caused, I mean, that they're pretty universal. So if you're here today and you owe money and you're feeling overwhelmed with that, you're not alone. We're doing this together. So it says, we do not dodge our creditors. Now, that is the first specific direction that we have. with money. To dodge our creditors is that thing when the mail comes and it's like past due, and we just throw it in the basket where it lives until, forever. Or, when you get, there was a gentleman in my home group years and years and years ago. I just remember this. He's like before the meeting, he answers his phone and he's like, Boston Pizza Calgary, how can I help you? And I'm like, what was that? What? And he was like, oh yeah, creditors. That is dodging our creditors. So we do not pretend to be a pizza place. We answer the phone. We deal with them head on. This is the next direction, telling them what we are trying to do. We make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Now, I don't know if you had anyone looking at your bank account back in the day, but I'll tell you what was happening with my bank account. Cash withdrawal, cash withdrawal, cash withdrawal, liquor store, liquor store, liquor store, liquor store. They can figure it out, they can figure it out. So it says they usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory that it may cause financial harm. And this is something that I've experienced. How often a 9th step can turn into a 12-step call. If I'm willing to show up honestly and transparently, man, there are times that we are surprised. Well, and actually that's what it's going to say. So it says, approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Now, this wasn't my firsthand experience, but back in the day when I was with my ex, he was going to rehab for the over 10th time at least. But I remember he called up Visa. Now, Visa is not known for its like humanitarian approach, but he calls up Visa and explains that he's going to rehab. And they were so cool and so chill and so understanding. And I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, like that's crazy. So that can sometimes happen if I approach it head on. Now it says, arranging the best deal we can. We let these people know that we are sorry. And as David said, an amends is not a sorry. It is not an apology. It is far more than that. It is to change, to repair, to restore. That's what I'm trying to do. So you might be like, hey, it's got a sorry in there. And it's not just because I'm a Canadian, but the sorry is to apologize. But we're also going to arrange a deal to pay them back the money that we owe them. Not give them our money, give them their money back. It's a whole different thing. Now, I'm trying to channel my inner Jedi. Oh, my nephew's got lightsabers. I should have grabbed a lightsaber. I didn't plan this ahead of time. But I was listening to what he really wanted to say about this. And from this paragraph, what Jedi David was really emphasizing was that for him, the best deal we can is in regards to the payment schedule, not in regards to the amount. And if you are like, I take great umbrage with that statement, take it up with David. I didn't say it. I'm just channeling Jedi. Pew, pew. So we arranged that deal. And it goes on to say, our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of. We might not lose the creditors. It might take some time to repay that debt, but we got to lose the fear of our creditors. No matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. And that's a warning. If I don't get clear of the stuff that is blocking me from this power, it is not a matter of if I drink again, if I use again, if I engage in that compulsive addictive behavior, it is when I will do it again. And I think that's it for me. And I was going to pew pew, but I got a thumbs up. So thumbs up.
It's okay. You can do anything on because you mesmerize me when you're talking. Because I really just want you to go for 45 minutes because you're my favorite speaker. I'm okay with that. But yeah, well done. And I'll add only a couple of things through my experiences. Like think about, I've given up a lot of my power because I owe people money or institutions from my past, right? And always looking over my shoulder, hoping that I didn't run into them. Right. That was how I lived my life. It was based off of complete fear. Well, the amends is about getting back my power too. Like when I give this, when I go and meet with my creditor, the people that I owe money to. So we don't dodge them. That is a great direction that I need to, it's precise. I need to face this head on. And also let's put this in proper perspective. I've had opportunities to sponsor a lot of younger men and some younger women even. And they owe money to mom and dad, for bailing them out of jail, paying that car payment or the electric bill or whatever the case would be. And they owe money, but they bought a pair of Nikes, a pair of Jordans. I'm like, dude, did you run that by mom and dad? Because you just spent their money on your shoes. It's like, that is not a proper amends. That is not your money to spend. And even if they told you it's okay to do, you were supposed to arrange the best deal possible. We were supposed to arrange the best deal possible, meaning both parties. Doesn't mean I get to. So if I have a lot of debt, as I did when I got sober, because I brought that in, that was in my relationship with my wife. I don't get to make her homeless either. Throw us out. Because the bank's going to foreclose. I'm trying to be responsible here today, but trying to work out the best deal possible with the people that I owe money to. So whatever that is, if that's $1 a week. It's $1 a week. The AA way of doing things, like $1 in the basket. Preferably, I can look at my finances and I could probably work out a better deal. I just had a guy who's just had 4 or 5 years sobriety, and he just cut a guy a check for $5,000 and he paid off his amends. Now I asked him, because I couldn't recall when he did his 4-step a couple years ago, were you waiting to have that whole $5,000 so you can just slap it on the table and go, here you are, you piece of poop? And he said, no, that's not what I did. He goes, I actually had it in the bank and I had forgotten about the amends. And you, as my sponsor, were delightful to bring it back to my attention, because you knew I was going to Florida and that's where this guy was at. And I said, well, you need to make your appointment and you need to pay him back. And I asked him how much it was. And I said, well, do you have $5,000 that you can pay this guy back? And he says, I do. I said, so how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's the right thing to do? I said, make the appointment with the guy. And he gave him the money. And he went down there and everything like that. And you know what? He's not looking over his shoulder anymore. Though he was able to bridge that gap, that of complete fear of all the time. And if I don't do these things, and my experience also at the same time is, a lot of people get to about step 8.5, and then they stop. Step 8.5 is, you prayed for willingness. You said you were willing to go to any lengths, and you got a list, but you're not physically making your approaches. It's very respectful to make an appointment with the people because they may not want to see me. I give them direction why I have to see them, because I'm going to drink again, and I let them know, but I make the appointment, and I'm not there to judge them or anything else. I'm there to make an amends, reparation for those things. So that's all I got there.
Awesome. And a cool thing that I heard, by the way, if we owe money, you might not find this to be a cool thing. So feel free to add me to your resentment list. But if I am if I like owe financial amends and I'm buying the Jordans and I'm going to the vacation in Florida or I'm doing that thing, I'm not just stealing from them once, I'm stealing from them twice. Rude, rude. Who would point that out? And I always like to emphasize, like, we talk about money because we struggle with money. And I don't think that's just alcoholics and addicts. I think that's a lot of human beings. But my experience is, when I start to approach the money that is in my bank account, not as my money, but as God's money, it changes the orientation that I have with it. So I'll take the next paragraph if you'd like. It's rock and roll. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense? Alcoholics? Drug addicts? Breaking the law? I am shocked. None of you guys, none of you law-abiding folks, but this little crackhead might have broken a law or two, which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short on our accounts and unable to make good. That's a couple things, like if you have an expense account, you're lying, or now, I know nobody here has ever stolen from the seventh tradition, but when you're stolen from the seventh tradition, you're like, I'll pay it back, I'll pay it back. And you don't. That's another example of that. It's a weirdly common thing. Also, shoplifting. When people get sober, like, I'm weird because I genuinely have not stolen from the seventh. I genuinely have not shoplifted. That's weird. Judge me. Like, judge me. It's weird. And a lot of people, the shoplifting gets worse when we get sober, because, man, when I'm sober, all I got is me, and I got nothing I can put between me, and I'll just take that little mascara for the rush. That is so incredibly common. So these are some examples of, little petty things. So we may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person. That happened in step 5. But we are sure, and that just jumped out to me. We are sure.
Hmm.
I am regularly sure of so many things about my amends before I make those amends. And you know what my experience is? The things that I was absolutely sure of did not happen. Welcome. I'll make you a co host in just a minute. They almost never happen. So we are sure that we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense, such as padding the expense account. So some of that little stealing, that little lying. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Most of us, would you look at that? Maybe we are divorced and have remarried. An alcoholic with marital troubles? With divorce? I mean, it's almost as though the next set of directions after criminal offenses is going to be focused on marital issues like infidelity. Wild. Spoilers. That's me. That's me sprinkling in some foreshadowing. We got to get to that today. Hurry up, Paige. Alrighty. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried, but haven't kept up the alimony to number one, or the child support payments, or payments to other things that we need. She is indignant about it. Now, that indignation is that self-righteous anger, and has a warrant out for our arrest. Alcoholics with warrants? Here's the thing: the judge does not care what step you're on. When you're in front of the judge, you're on step 9. So it's a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble too. So just some examples of, yeah, you're not alone. Now, I think that's all I'll say, and I'll pew pew it over to David. Pew pew.
Thank you, Paige, and welcome, Emily. Glad you're here. You're not late. We didn't do the Lord's Prayer. It's okay. It's all good. So yeah, so this is the third representation that Bill gives us on amends. How to make this reparation. So the first one we did with the hated people, the people who resented. Then we found out, surprising to us, that most alcoholics owe money, like Paige said. It's like, what? Stop it. Yeah, we all owe money. Promise you. If we got to. We know the common problem and we know what the common solution is. We have to have that. And this is part of the common problem. It really is the unmanageability in my life. And I love what Paige said too. That money that's in my bank account is not my money. I've been giving stewardship of that money by a power greater than myself. At least that's my experience. And I need to be responsible with that money and pay those people back. But again, a lot of us, perhaps we've committed a criminal offense, which might land us in jail if we're known to the authorities. Okay, so now this is where counsel comes in, right? And not that my sponsor has opinions or advice. He's never one of those guys, and I'm not one of those guys either. I have no opinion. No, matter of fact, if I give you an opinion and I give you advice, you should fire me and get someone else that doesn't do that. I'll give you my experience. That's what I'll give you as I've worked the steps. But so I don't get to run into the police department and say I did this, that, and the other thing without counseling with someone else, because this affects my family if they had stayed. And they did stay. I was very blessed. I mean, they're both feet were out the door on the other side of the threshold. For some reason, they just could not pull the door closed, and I'm grateful for that. But the thing about that is I can't just show up and do that without counseling with someone else, because, in our 9th step, and I neglected to read this, so I probably should read the 9th step real quick. In the 9th step on page 59, it says, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Well, here's the first thing someone told me about that. I'm not others. I'm not others. If I get injured, I get injured. But again, I have to go to counsel. I have to go to counsel to find out, should I get locked up? And my sponsor said, yeah, you do need to go to these people making amends. And I did make an amends to these people. And if you do get locked up, and after counseling, he goes, then I guess you'll carry the message inside the wall. And I did. And I did. I was supposed to do a lot of years, and I didn't. I ended up doing months, good behavior. I learned how to behave good, and they actually, I got half my sentence knocked off. It was amazing. Anyways, so as Paige pointed out halfway through that paragraph, we're talking about we admit this confidence is another person. So again, keep in mind what the first step gives us is that gift of we not doing any of this alone. Even though I think I'm making my approach and I'm making my appointment and I got to sit down, I have incorporated a power grade in myself tonight. I am grateful, delighted to say that that I found the truth in this thing. And where there's truth, there is God. And that's a fifth step promise, you know, that I know that today. And I can have a great faith in the fact that this fear that was driving me to make these amends to the people that I owe amends to, it's based off of me having some courage to get to that level of faith. And the courage is to make that phone call, to make that approach, and make that appointment. Because once I do that, and then the result is in the book it is my experience too. These things went pretty well. Now I can have faith that the next time I make the next approach, I make the next appointment, and I sit down with them, it's probably going to work out just the way God intended it to. Why? Because I can look the world in the eye, if it's that promise. Also, the fact is like I'm not looking over my shoulder any longer. I'm not fear of anything. And I've had what the spiritual appendix in the back of the book said is a personality change sufficient enough to recover. I think people will pick up on that pretty quickly. At least that was my experience because I'm sitting across from them. And as I made the amends, and I'll go through this one more time as I did last week, an amends to me just goes like this. You know, I just say I owe to Jim an amends, Jim J. There, Jim. These are the harms that I caused you, and dude, I'm completely bewildered by my behavior in the past, and I just want to straighten out my past because I have to do this. I have to get free of this stuff. But I'm also interested in the fact: is there any other harms that I've caused you, Jim, that I'm not aware of? And then I shut up for 45 minutes and let Jim give it to me, like hand it out. Yeah, dude, you're my friend. You stole money from me. You lived in my place. You never paid rent. And then you didn't show up for 3 days. And I worried about you sick. You know, all these things that I did. And I didn't even consider I was harming another person. And then at the end of that the third part of that amends process is this: how can I make this right? Well, dude, you not drinking and drugging is a good start, but continue to do this process and carry this message to other people because we just don't know those people that maybe I made my approach to. They may have a family member that's an alcoholic and a drug addict that needs me to 12 step them. And I've had that experience before where they've called me. They said, dude, you're a way better person than you've ever been before. Would you help my son? It's like, oh my goodness, I would love to be able to sit down and do that. And they don't get to hear about what happened between their son and I. No, that's confidentiality, that's anonymity. But that's the fact about it is like, I don't know how God is going to use me. My prayer is simple every day. God, what would you have me be in this person's life? And what would you have me be in my finances? What would you have me be at work? Not asking God for favors today. Don't need them. God is all powerful. And I just ask him what I should be in those relationships.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, when I was listening to the recording of what you guys covered, there's a theme that Jedi, pew, pew, that's the lightsaber noise. I didn't do it right. I didn't judge me. Send David a strongly worded letter. Uh, or 4-column inventory. That's how I take complaints. But the thrust of what we're seeing on 79 that we'll see again and again in this part of the book is, and this is exactly what he said. He said, be cool. And I'm like, nailed it. David does too. You nailed it. Team cool. Woo! Be cool. Pray. Talk to your sponsor. So when we talk about these amends, the thrust of what David was wanting to share with us is this idea that like we don't, and it's exactly what David was just saying, we don't do them alone. We take them to God. We take them to the people about us. Now, this next paragraph that we're going to read, it is about willingness. I've got to go to the nth degree about willingness, and then I take it to others. So, although these reparations take innumerable forms. So what it's saying is, although these amends to repair, to restore, to make right, to change, take innumerable for me is like too many to count. So although these types of amends, there's so many ways that we can make them. There are some general principles which we find guiding. Now, this is important. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. Rude! When did that happen? When did I agree to that? Wait a minute. Now, if we're going through the book chronologically, we would have agreed on page 58. On page 58, it asks me to ask myself, do I want what you guys have? And what do you have? You have permanent contented sobriety. Do I want that? Do I want the light that I see in David's eyes? That joy and that ability to not take himself so seriously, to be okay in his own skin. Do I want that? And I want it, David. Now, Now, am I willing to go to any lengths to get it? Now, when I work with sponsees, I'm like, this will bite us in the butt in a little while. And this is where it's biting us in the butt. Essentially, in the third step, if I go through the book chronologically, that is when I made the decision that I would go to any lengths. And every action that I take after the third step is me following through on the promise, on the commitment that I made. It then goes on to say, we ask. And anytime in this book we see those words, we ask, that is a prayer. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. So this is a paragraph that is all about like willingness. And how I say that prayer, and I say that prayer on a daily basis, is God, I ask that I be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Help me to be willing to not shrink at anything. And so if I'm struggling with that willingness, I can lean into that spiritual elbow grease and bring God in. So we got to bring God in. And then in the next paragraph, what we're going to see is we're going to bring other people in and ask for their guidance. That's all I got for that paragraph. Pew pew.
Thank you so much, Paige. You rock.
Oh, you
Yeah.
rock.
So this, so this is the fourth description of resentment, or that we can make. This is the others, where others are involved. So if I committed and I committed some crimes with other people. I do not get to, even though I committed these crimes, I need to get their consent if I'm going to go to the police over something and say that they did this with me. I don't get to just say, well, I did it. I'll put it to you this way. And good luck finding this guy because he's dead. But the guy I did it with was my brother. He died directly from alcoholism like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But we committed a lot of criminal offenses as young kids, robbing a lot of places and stealing a lot of stuff, things. But prior to his death, I didn't have the right to go to someone and say, Billy, my brother Billy, he did this too. No, I don't get to do that. I have to get their consent to do that. I don't get to, where others are involved, I don't get to do that stuff. And as I was reading this paragraph, it says, usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be hasty and foolish martyr. For me, the definition of martyr means a constant sufferer. Oh, I'm really familiar with that. I have a disease of untreated alcoholism. Dis-ease? Get it? Just saying, you know. So I'm real familiar, but I don't get to be a martyr here. And a foolish martyr, by the way, too. Like, just describe this martyr with a fool. But the man who now had remarried because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his wife. Is he a will not or a cannot? Or is he both? He just might be both. I'm just saying. Remember on page 58? He willing to go to any links here? And let me just read it to you. Page 58, the first paragraph. We read this in a lot of meetings. It says, those who do not recover, people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Back to page 79, second paragraph. Because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his wife. That's a will not, and that's a cannot. Because of his drinking, he cannot, and will not is because he has resentments that he's not willing to get rid of. So I got to be free of these things. And of course, she was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of living. We're talking about the first 100, how they recovered. 77, however many people was. I don't care, Bill. You can use any number you want, bro. This book worked well for me. I don't care. And it says he had secured a position, was getting his head above water. Now, warning, big fat warning. A lot of me, clear up the wreckage, start clearing up the wreckage of my past. Get back in good standings with my employer. Get okay with the bank, not withdrawing, not being overdrawn anymore. Maybe even made the border crossing with mama already, right? Did all those things in the bedroom. That's external. This is an internal disease, illness that I have, and it has to have an internal solution. So this is what Paige is talking about for me, is I must have a relationship with God. And that's what 4 through 9 will do for me. 4 through 9 will introduce me to another level of spiritual conditioning, right? Because I don't have the ability, and God gives that ability to me as I work these steps. I couldn't have done 4 on day 1. I wasn't ready for 4. But as by second week, I was doing my 4th step. And by the 3rd week, I was doing my 5th step and the 6th step and the 7th step. And I had my list on 8. Oh, wait a second. That's in a couple weeks. How can you do this so fast? Yeah. And I just listened to Pages talk about relapse, and she just did one, and she says, there's some people say, well, this is not a race. Au contraire, this is a race, because the insane thought will win out. The insane thought will win out every single time. The sane thought needs to win out, but the insane thought will win out if if I don't have my spiritual conditioning. All right. So this is why I got to stay on the spiritual path and have the guardrails, and the guardrails or the handrails, whatever you want to call them, are the 12 steps. That's what they are, to keep me on this path with you, where you lovely people live. And so for me, at the very end of that paragraph, it would have been impressive heroics to me. He walked up to the judge and said, "Here I am." Again, I have to counsel with others, as Paige pointed out. I have to go talk to you about your experience with that stuff, because me getting locked up deprived my family of food, shelter and stuff like that. I need to have reparation, which Bill wasn't a big fan of that. He only used that word one time in the big book. At least I heard, Paige might correct me on that, but I thought Bill didn't like the word reparation. He liked the word amends. And I like the word amends too. They both mean the same exact thing, probably. But anyways, that's all I got there. Thank you, Paige.
Awesome. All right. And yeah, what I want to emphasize about that paragraph is that idea that like commence our way of life. That these 12 steps are not like a project that is completed, but they are how we live our life. And exactly what David was saying about like, man, it's a race. I've got to get them done. And as Sergio put in the chat, like somebody did their steps in 9 days. We can do it that quickly. And here's the thing, we don't have to sacrifice quality with speed. We can get the steps done quickly and thoroughly at the same time. And that's what it was done in those early days. And so it would make sense that very early on, this guy would have begun this way of life and would be doing this amends stuff. And it's saying, yeah, we ought to be willing. And actually, I'll take the next paragraph because it says he ought to be willing to do that if necessary. And just as David said, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. If although I will say I've been a little overstimulated lately, I'm like, I could use a little bit of quiet, I could use that. But yeah, that's not me being of maximum service to God and the people about us. And this gentleman had people who relied on him to provide for them. So, as David was saying, going to those who have had this experience, not opinions, not beliefs, not ideas, but experience. And you can tell when people have had experience because one, because they're free, two, because they're talking about it. And you can kind of tell, I've been talking about it lately. We can kind of tell when somebody hasn't made amends because it's like, oh, no, you can't do that. The SWAT team will come in as you're trying to make amends to mom. Mom's not sending in the SWAT team, but like we trust those who have gone through it. And this is a program based on experience, not opinion. So we suggested, those who have had this experience suggested he write his first wife admitting his faults, which is exactly what David was saying, is that part of amends where I admit what I have done and asking forgiveness. Again, the whole point of amends isn't forgiveness, but in that I believe he is showing contrition. And also sent a small amount of money. It doesn't matter how fancy and eloquent my amends is. And like I help my sponsees with amends. And so, those ones tend to have some fancy language because I got some weird old-timey language. But if I owe them money, I gotta pay the money back. And David, you were talking about that sponsee who had the $5,000 and like Scrooge McDuck, boom, there it is. And that's how I want to make all my financial amends, to be honest with you. I want to Scrooge McDuck, bag of money, drop it on the table and be like, amends made, bad boy, woo. But that is often not how I am able to make amends. And I'll tell you something, for somebody like family, there can be tremendous spiritual value for our family members in making consistent payments, that consistent change. So I'm just throwing that out there. So send a small amount of money. He told her what he would try to do in the future. Say, I'm sending you this money. I'm going to continue to send this money. And he did say he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. That willingness to go to any lengths. And it says, of course, she did not. most people aren't that vindictive. Because what does she want? She wants the money to take care of her. And if she had kids with him, the kids, like that's what she wanted. Are there people that are vindictive? Probably. But I do then have to have a look and be like, did I do a whole lot to make them vindictive by like beating them down with my alcoholism and my drug addiction and taking and taking and taking? And probably. So, of course, she did not. And the whole situation has long since been adjusted. Did you want to say anything about that or take the next
Yeah.
paragraph?
Well, I just want to say one little thing about that because halfway through it says he did and also sent a small amount of money. That is an action. It's an action. Well, guess what this program happens to be all about? Action. 129 times or something like that, 125 times it's mentioned in the book. This is you want to be a verb and not a noun. It's like that's important to be a verb here. That's what I need to be. And I worked out the best deal I possibly could. And yes, she just wants my money. That's it. And I love Paige's point. Yeah, I stole people's hope. And I think that might be the greatest sin I could have ever committed, because they were just hoping that this family could stay together. But based on my alcohol and drug use, where I had no power, no choice, no control. And by the way, still have no power, no choice, no control, But the thing is like when I still got high and I still got drunk and I didn't show up for 3 days, or I took that paycheck and I cashed it, or I ended up like having them worry all day long, I stole their hope. I continue to steal their hope all the time. That is not something that I do today. I don't steal someone's hope. If I say I'm going to do something, I actually do it, and I have a sponsor and he knows he's my sponsor. And my sponsor is a geeky tech guy like that. I mean, when I go over to his house on Fridays and he's got his computer open for work because he works from home a lot of times, it looks like the Matrix. Honest to God, it really does. It's like all this stuff. I go, how do you know what you're doing and how do you keep your, without going crazy? It's because and he just does this stuff. But the thing is like I asked him, I said, when you made your amends, what did it look like? He said, well, I tried to get with my ex-wife and she would not see me. So I wrote a kindly letter and I sent it to her and she had a sign for it that she received it. And that's as far as he's ever got. This is 25 or 6 years ago. He wrote that letter. He doesn't know if she even read it. Doesn't matter. It's the action that he performed. He took some counsel from someone because she said she did not want to see him, and he wrote the kindly letter. And if you know my sponsor the way I know my sponsor, want to talk about how the steps work in your life and how you have a personality change? Because I've heard his story. Like when I share my story, I don't really ever share anything from the past, just for the fact is I know I'm spiritually fit. That's or unfit. That's the part I share. And what the steps did in my life and where I'm at now with God and my relationship. But he and I share each other's story as we did in a private conversation. I could not believe that was the same guy. It's like, oh my God. I mean, he threw his wife down a flight of steps, he did that and this and the other thing. Like, oh my God, he is like gentle. And Jim knows him, and Jim will tell you, and Levi knows him. It's like he's like the kindest, nicest, smartest guy you ever met in your life. It's like, don't tell me these things don't work, these steps don't work, because they do. I am not the same person I was even a year ago. If I stay loyal to and I do step 10 and 11 and 12. I know I jumped ahead, but I'm just giving you a kind of a spoiler alert. What comes after 9? 10. That's all I got there.
Pew pew. And but when you mentioned the word reparation, I just looked it up on 164andmore.com. So the word reparation is used one time in the family afterword, and reparations used right here. So only used twice in the big book. Just wanted to point that out. And I love what you said about integrity. And like the fact that like I stole hope. And I did that by, as you were saying, not being the person that I promised that I would be and doing it again and again and again. And you know what? I cannot fake. I can put on a mask. I can fake a whole lot of things. I can pretend a whole lot of things. I can manipulate, but I cannot fake integrity. And integrity is for my yes to mean yes and my no to mean no. To be who I say that I am. Man, and it is only that consistency with integrity that hope is rebuilt. So, top of page 80. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people. Now, this is that really summarizing what we're talking about with the I've got to be willing to go to any lengths, but I got to take it to God and I got to take it to trusted people. So before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. So we got to check with our loved ones. We have obtained permission, have consulted with others. The others would be like a sponsor or recovered members who have had that shared experience, who have made that amends. And then it says, asked God to help. Whenever we see that word asked, that is a prayer. Another little prayer right here. God, I need your help. And honestly, I think sometimes help is the purest prayer that I will ever say. Help. And it says, and the drastic step is indicated. We must not shrink. So I'll tell you what the drastic step being indicated looks like in my life. It looks like I showed up to a meeting like this, and David and Paige are nattering on about amends, and I have this thought of an amends, and my stomach goes, bleh, and I get the twisties and the resisties. That is how I know the drastic step is indicated. Maybe your digestive system works a little bit differently than mine, but I can't tell you, the pre-amends, things get moving, So yeah, that's all I'll say about that one. If you wanted to talk on that or pop over to paragraph 4.
Yeah, just real briefly, the first word is before, not afterwards, before. This is before. I need to know before taking drastic action. So okay, what if I took drastic action without counseling with someone and going to God? And because I need to secure their consent. That's very respectful to do that. I really need to do that. I have to value other people's time. I can't just go in there saying, I'm really sorry for all the stuff I did. Want to tell me about the stuff you did? It's like, no, that's not what this is about. And it says, we have obtained their permission, a direction. Get their permission that they're going to sit down with us. I may even prepare them and go, hey, can you got 45 minutes? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? And go do this. And I've consulted with my sponsor. And okay, so I give spiritual consent to certain people. Spiritual consent means to me, like David has my spiritual, Jedi David, and my sponsor. And I have a couple sponsees who've been sober for a very long time. I give them spiritual consent, meaning to me that when they see a behavior about me or something that's going on in my life, they can confront me on it. And David just did this recently. I've been a little bit, my 3-legged stool, 2 of my legs have been a little wobbly. My recovery's been pretty decent. My unity hasn't been that great because I've been super busy at work and I've got to a lot of live meetings and I haven't been hitting the Zooms, like about 2 or 3 a week. And how about my service? Well, I'm not really working with anybody new right now. Like I took a guy through the steps just recently. So that's been 3 months. And my partner, Jedi David, told me, he goes, dude, you need to be working with like 5 people at once. That's how you're wired. like, like busy, good. Let's go. Step 1, let's go. Step 2, let's read it out of the book. Let's commit to this thing. And when I do that, then 3 sides of my triangle are equilateral. And then because of that, I have this wholeness that the circle gives to me. And I love what Paige said there. Ask God to help. Anytime we see the word ask God, we know that's a prayer. And it is the short version, because I guess I need a short version of the serenity prayer, because that's not short enough. It is, but let's go. Like we always find another avenue, right? Help. If I say that, is he paying attention? You bet he is. He totally is. And I've seen him take me through things that I could not have possibly got through without his power. And that drastic steps indicated that we must not shrink. And I didn't point this out as I was going through, but this is the 4th example of why these things that we have to do, a have to or must. We must not is a definite. I can't shrink. I can't just back down from this process. I have to go through this process with the power that God gives me.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a little musty in here. I had to open a window. Musty. Awesome. All right. So yeah, that's in summary of what we're looking to do in regards to criminal offenses. If it's going to affect other people, we get their consent, we take it to God, we take it to our sponsor or a trusted fellow, we have that feeling in our gut, and we do it. We do it. Now, the next section, bottom of page 80, there's a beautiful little story, but we're skipping it. I love that story. Very bottom of page 80, it's paragraph 4. It says the chances are, now I know this is going to be a surprise to all of you as it is to me, that we have domestic troubles, domestic troubles with romantic and sexual relationships. Wild! I am shocked. Perhaps we are mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. Now, I'm not going to call anyone out, but if we're feeling a little like, yikes, we're talking about us. It says, we doubt if in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. And if you remember back at the bottom of 68 and all of 69, we dove into sex conduct. And what did it say about sex or relationship conduct? We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. So to struggle in this area is not limited to alcoholics or drug addicts or compulsive, whatever brings you to this all-inclusive study and step group. But here's the thing. There are human beings that can struggle with sex, that could struggle with gambling, could struggle with food, can struggle with shopping, struggle with money, and then they just struggle with it. You know what I mean? Kind of full stop. It's just an area they struggle with. But for somebody like me, what I need is nothing less than a spiritual experience. And I'll tell you what the spiritual malady looks like from my own experience. For me, the spiritual malady is a conscious sense. It's only a sense because I can never truly be separated from God, but it's a conscious sense of separateness from God. And that hurts. It is painful. It is exhausting. It is terrible to live in my own skin, and I need relief. And I know I get it from booze. And I'm a little crackhead, and I know a hoot, that'll take it away. I will get my relief. But if I'm untreated, I put down the booze, I put down the crack. I'm going to pick up little other things. And transparency, at the end of the day, I like disassociate and I'm watching reels that I don't want to be watching. Not even the good stuff. Like I'm not on TikTok, I'm on Facebook reels. It's like they cut it, but like I'm doing that to numb out, to escape how I'm feeling. And if I engage in that long enough, guess where I'm going to end up? With a bottle in my mouth, or a bottle in my hand, a pipe in my mouth. That is my experience. So nothing less than a spiritual experience. And also, let's say I'm one of those drunks that has a high pain tolerance and I can live in acting out in sexual behavior or acting out in codependency and acting out in, all these ways. And there are times I have a high pain tolerance and I am miserable. But it cuts me off from God. And man, once you've had a taste of this thing, that transformation that David was talking about, like I am not who I was when I got here either. Once I've had this experience of God, man, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to miss out on it. There's no glass ceiling to what we get to experience here. We get to experience more and more. So it's not just if I continue to harm others with this behavior, I'm going to drink again. It's also I'm missing out on everything that I was looking for in the bottle, everything that I was looking for in the pipe. So it does say, but drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. That's how we know I went off on a tangent and I brought myself right back. Focus up, Paige. After a few years with an alcoholic, how a wife or a partner gets worn out, resentful, uncommunicative. How could she be anything else? So not just me showing up and basically needing an adult babysitter because I can't control myself. The lies that I've told, the deception that I had, the walls, the masks, the double life that I was leading. Now we're talking at this part specifically infidelity. But man, I didn't have, when we talk about Mr. Brown, I would say, man, I didn't have one mistress, I had two. In that example, it's the mistress that was the illicit affair, but then it was my mistress that was alcohol. You know what I mean? I'm not giving that person time and attention, and I'm breaking their heart. I'm breaking their trust. I'm betraying their hope. How could they not be resentful, uncommunicative, and exhausted with my behavior? The husband, because I am self-centered, begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. Because when I am untreated, I can only see that you've retaliated. I cannot see that I stepped on your toes first. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. Now, I want to point something about this part of the book. The book was written to go out into the world. And there might not be a single other sober person that you know. And you have a copy of this book. And you're trying to read this book and go through this book and follow its directions by yourself. And what I found is the book meets me where I'm at. The book meets me in my resistance. The book meets me in my unwillingness. The book meets me in my fear. The book meets me in my selfishness. The book meets me in my self centeredness and takes me where I need to go. And I think if the book can meet me there, that's probably where God meets me as well.
Hmm.
And if you're like me, you've been this person, but wait a minute, this person understands, or like you worked with a sponsee, you know what I mean? Where the sponsee is like, no, but it's you don't understand. This person gets me, like stuck in that delusion and that denial. And it's like, okay, in fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? So it's going to meet us where we're at, but then take us where we need to go. What do I have to do? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he's married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him. Now, infidelity wasn't something that I did. I have like really rigid thinking, but I've worked with people who have, and I've had a sponsee, and she was physically ill, like she would be dry heaving, like consistently from the guilt that she felt for cheating on her husband. And he knew this wasn't a secret. He knew and had forgiven her. And so I think that's what it's talking about there. I'll throw it over to you, David. Pew pew.
Okay. Thank you. Great job, Paige. Yeah. So this is the fifth example of a resentment here on the bottom of page 80 as we travel over to 81. And so, yeah, we all, I don't know one person that didn't have a domestic trouble. So, I mean, it's just, dude, it's like, even if you're just, even if I minimize that, if I was stealing their hope again, that was like the greatest sin I probably possibly could have ever caused my wife. I mean, all the promises I broke, all the frothy appeals that she gave me just went on deaf ears because I got no power, no choice, no control until I could see to my innermost self, not God. So I'm not answering it. That phone, not doing it because it would show up as God, right? I mean, wouldn't he put God on the phone? He would. So, anyways, so then let's look at this, and I think Bill is intentional in this paragraph. I think he has some experience in this realm. That's what I think. Even though he says in his story that one because of drinking he could have never ever done, couldn't have had an affair. But guess what? He might have done in sobriety. He had a little girl on the side, 22 years younger than him. So her name was Helen Wynn. But listen, thank God for Bill Wilson. And thank God for the divinely inspired Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because we wouldn't all be here together today, shoulder to shoulder through this process. But think about the descriptions that they're giving us, because drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. How many times did I force my will on my wife, like guilt her into having sex with me before I got sober, and even in sobriety, right? This is a mutual being, putting someone else's common welfare before your own. This is how I should treat sex. Is between partners. It's equal. It has to be equal. Like, do it when it's good for her, and not just when I need it. Because what it did there, it says, after a few years with an alcoholic, a wife gets worn out, resentful, and communicative, irritable, restless, and discontented. Dr. Silkworth described us that way with the obsession. I'm thinking I cause these problems in my life with her too. She's worn out. She's pissed off, and she ain't talking to me anymore. So how can there be anything else? A husband begins to feel lonely and full of self-pity. And my favorite definition of self-pity is excessive. Excessive. Please, let's not minimize it at all. Self-absorbed unhappiness over one's troubles. Excessive. That's what self-pity looks like. Feeling sorry for himself. So what do? I'm trying to fill that God-sized hole, because I'm not drinking and drugging right now, with something else. And Paige pointed out food, gambling, sex. How about flirtatious? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just having a conversation with a woman, giving her my undivided attention. Okay, if my wife was standing right behind me, would I be doing that? I would not be doing that. That is a good rule of thumb to use. And I talked to some of my guys about that, or the gals that I work with. Like, pretend like your wife's standing next to you when you're flirting and batting your beautiful eyes at this guy after the meeting. It's like, just because you needed some attention, But as I was reading this story, there's musts in here. It says, in fairness, we must say that she may understand, this other woman, but we are going to do about a thing like that. A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times. Well, what happens when I get full of remorse? What happens when I get full of self-pity? There's a drink behind all those things. That is, Paige brought this up just a little bit ago. There's a drink behind this. I have no power, no choice, or control. Like I need not to behave like this. This is staying on the spiritual path. This is so vital for me to stay spiritually fit. And it says, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl. That is a great description of Lois. That is a wonderful description of Lois, Bill's wife. That is a wonderful description of my wife. A very loyal. She didn't stay for me. She stayed for the kids with hope that I would get sober. Almost 26 years later, we have a loving, caring, thoughtful relationship by the grace of God and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous in those 12 steps that I had to practice in all my affairs. She doesn't have to do any of that stuff. Guess what I found out? She didn't need to change anything for me to be okay. That wasn't it. That's not it at all. And this is who has literally gone through hell for him. Let's not minimize it. Think about it. Think about all the nights that she stayed up. Think about all the times that I lied to her. Like I lied just because I lie. I didn't even know. I couldn't differentiate the truth from the false because I didn't even know what the truth was any longer. Become full of integrity today allows me to look the world in the eye. That's a gift of the step work. That is not something I could pull off on my own. That comes through me. That does not come of me. Wow, we're at the bottom of the hour already.
I know. We got some paragraphs to go. So are we going over or are we wrapping up? It's up to you.
I think let's hit one more paragraph and then we'll just
okay.
wrap up.
Yeah.
Want to do that?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And I will also say I love David's wife. She is just so lovely.
She's down.
Oh, she is. All right. So it says, whatever the situation, oh man, I'm going to tell this story. Whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. Oh man, do something? What? If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the other woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. More than that, we cannot do. And it says we have no right to go further. Though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found this the best course to take. Now, can be a bit of a tough part of the book for a lot of people, because up to this moment, it's like, go be rigorously honest, go to any lengths. And it's like infidelity. It's like, whoa, you want us to do what now? Like, wait, maybe don't tell this person? And yes, as David said, Bill Wilson did have that like long-term person that he had an affair with. But I will say that there are sometimes you'll hear that he was a rampant womanizer, and he was constantly, and like that there were squads of people that when Bill Wilson would visit, they'd have to like keep him and try to keep him away from new women. And there's a historian, his name is Ernie Kurtz, and he wrote a book that's called Not God. And what he did was he investigated that, and he looked into it, and he could not find a second corroborating source. And all those stories of rampant infidelity were tied back to one person by the name of Tom Powers that Bill had a falling out with. So just I always want to like asterisk that in there. But that's the thing, is if I don't continue to grow spiritually, I will do things that go against my morals, that go against my values, and I can do them sober. And so I had the privilege of like really doing the Monday deep dive with Howard and really breaking down these difficult paragraphs where it's a little like, whoa, like I thought you said to go to any lengths, Paige. But here's what I found in the discussion that we had after, where we were talking about it. There were times where people said what I needed to do was get honest, or if their partner cheated, they needed that partner to be honest. And then there were other people who found it to be the opposite. And I do think that this is one of those really tricky places. You see, infidelity isn't just like, of course it's cheating, but it's betraying trust. And that's a type of trauma. So if I cheat on somebody, I have created a situation where that person can experience betrayal trauma, which is genuinely something that is quite traumatizing, that often carries into future relationships and into other areas of our life. So it's saying that, like, we don't know what the, like, in and of myself, I don't know what the best thing is to do. But again, that theme of take it to God and take it to a trusted person. And we're not going to go there, but on page 82, there is a direction, and this direction sort of cuts through all the stuff. It says each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Not what is best for me, but what is best for the other person. And I think that's the guiding light for this thing. Now, I'll tell you a story that doesn't really have to do with infidelity, but it kind of fits a little bit. So I was visiting David in Illinois, and we show up, and we're at his house, and a bunch of us, and open the door, and this cat runs out, and it's his daughter's cat, and she gone. Like, this cat is gone, and like and then all the alcoholics and drug addicts like are like leaving to look under the bushes and jump over fences and flashlights. And I'm sitting there in my wheelchair. I'm like, I don't do well on grass. I've let the cat out. I'm the problem. Anywho, they got the cat. Day was safe. And then after that, David's daughter came, and there was that sort of, hey, let's maybe not mention this to the daughter because it was going to stress her out needlessly. So that is my infidelity example on this one. Pew pew. Over to you, David. I'm so glad we got that cat.
That is a true story. Paige was over my house and she just arrived. Like, and here she is ready to come to my home, and the cat bolts. This cat does not know how good he's got it, and he bolts. And it's my daughter's cat, and she's not around. And we leave Paige sitting on the stoop. It's like we all left the house and chased this stupid cat over. So the story is true, and we didn't tell her because it would have done her more harm than it would have done anything else. So yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to comment on this. Maybe we'll go back to this paragraph next week so everybody can kind of go on with their life. I know it's a little bit later in the UK and stuff. So wonderful job today, Paige. Thank you so much. I really love you for everything that you do. And again, I would have just listened to you talk the whole 45 minutes because you just rock. You're my favorite speaker. You really
I
are.
love you too.
And she's my favorite aunt.
Oh, thank you.
I can see I can see what you're beautiful.
All righty.
Okay, let's close this with a prayer. I'm going to pick the 11th step prayer that's out of the 12 and 12 on page 99. So I will read that aloud. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there's hatred, I may bring love, that where there's wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. Thank you all for being here.